Hello, friends. I am so excited to be here today for this kind of special behind the scenes podcast episode with Brandon and Brigitte Beckley. You are going to be hearing from the Beckley crew a lot in this super cool podcast, and they're going to be talking to amazing other homeschoolers. But you may kind of wonder, who are these people? I want to get to know them a little better, and I do as well. So I'm looking forward to the chance to sit and chat with them both today. But I should probably also tell you who I am. So my name is Amy Sloan. I'm a second generation homeschool mom of 5. Our youngest is 8 and our oldest is 18. He's actually a college student now. So we've had our first homeschool graduate. I write at humilityanddoxology.com, and I'm the host of the Homeschool Conversations with Humility and Doxology podcast, which I was telling them before we started. Podcasting is just an excuse to talk to cool people. And I have 2 very cool people to talk to today. So here at the beginning, I would just love to hear a little bit more about you, your family, your faith journey, and just who you are and what we can expect to hear from you. So Brigitte, you want to get us started?
Sure. So my name is Brigitte, and it is French in origin, which is always a conversation starter, but no, I was born here in South Florida, and my parents just like the name. I don't know. So, I grew up down here, went to church my whole life. Actually, in elementary school, we went to a Catholic church. My parents kind of found God when they were married already, and so then they hopped around. But I grew up in a faith believing home, and so I was always plugged into church and youth group and stuff like that. But I went to a public school, and all the way from elementary to high school, I did college online mostly. I learned a trade, so I did x-ray schooling and then kind of ultrasound. That's what I've been doing for the last 16 years is ultrasound in a hospital. And
17.
Oh gosh,
We're old now. It's okay.
Time flies. And so kind of I knew growing up in youth group, there were some families in my church that did homeschool. So I was not unfamiliar to it when we had children, but it was not something I really had personal experience with. My parents both worked full time outside the house, and so it was never even on their radar to think to do it. And but I did know people, and I didn't think they were weird or anything. They were my friends in youth group. And so when we got married, we had kids, it was kind of oh, that would be cool. But it never really was a conversation we had in the beginning. And we both worked outside the home. So they started going to daycare very young as soon as I had to go back to work. And it was not something that we initially really had conversations about. And so in the last couple of years, things have drastically shifted. And so we'll,
You're going to
get
give away
into
the
that.
whole story.
No, I'm saying
right
we're
now.
going to we're getting into that later. But yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, and Brigitte, maybe by the time people are watching or listening, you will already have a new little one. But can you tell us the ages of your children?
So our oldest son is 8.5. And our girl, who is 4, almost 5. And then
2 months. 2.5, yeah.
Yeah, almost 5. And then this one hopefully will be born in November. So just about a month from now.
We are somewhere between 34.5 and 35.5 weeks, depending on who you believe. That's a whole other story.
Well, we'll have to see what ends up happening. I know you're excited to meet the new little one. Well, Brandon, what's sort of your background? Did you grow up in the church as well?
Yeah, so I didn't really. I was in the church until I was 12 or so. We had very different backgrounds, and you're going to tell really quickly, if you haven't already, super different personalities that can make for a wonderful marriage, but one you have to work hard at. But I was in the church until I was 12 or so. My mom was a single mom for the most part. So she was working all the time. My grandma would take us to church a lot when we were little. She passed when I was 11 and a half or so, and so that's about when that ended for me. And I sought for meaning in a lot of other places, in school or academics, fun stuff, anywhere I could find friends, which, poor kid without parents around, not always a good idea. And so I went in some bad directions, started seeking meaning in, girls as I was a teenage boy. That happens. That was bad, to be clear, for any young boys listening. That's not your purpose in life. And, it got worse. And when I went off to college, there's more opportunity to find meanings in things that are no good, bad relationships, substances that we are not meant to make a major part of our lives. And so I went about as far from God as you can get. When I was 19, no, I'm sorry, 21, all those things kind of fell apart at the same time. It's like a bad country song. Like the girl I lived with left, and I lost my place to live, and my stuff went to storage, and I lost my car to a repo, and lost my job, and my dog ran away with my cousin's brother's dog. Everything's true except for the dog part, right? But the rest of that, yes. And I was at my bottom, and I remember one night really feeling about as unlovable as you can feel. I got on the phone with somebody, and that's a whole crazy story. But the short of it is, they told me a thing that I'd heard a million times, that as unlovable as I felt, God loved me so much that he sent his son to die for me. And he wanted a relationship with me. And I was mad. I didn't want to hear it at that moment. But I knew what they were saying was true. And so that began a time of repentance for me, a time of changing my life around. And a few years later, I ended up, shortly after I met this one, full-time staff at a church. And I spent most of the last decade as a full-time staff pastor at a local church. A lot of things happened in between there that led us to Made to Homeschool today, which we still see not as just business, but ministry. Like it always must be ministry first for us. Amy, I don't want to go too long there, but I think, does that answer your question okay?
Yeah, that answers my question. I know there have been a few times where there's sort of been these moments of big transition in your life where God has sort of stepped in and said, yeah, you think you're going this way, but I have got a stop sign and turn in a different direction. So
Facts.
I know we're going to get to that more later, but I love hearing that story from both of you, just how the Lord worked differently as you were growing up, but gave you both a similar heart for ministry and ultimately for family. So I know, Brigitte, you mentioned a little bit that you kind of knew some people who had homeschooled when you were growing up, and you didn't think they were weird or anything like that. It just was never something you were really thinking would happen with your own children for a while. How about you, Brandon? Did you have any kind of assumptions about homeschooling early on, and how has that kind of changed over the years?
Yeah, as a kid, so I went to public school as well, and I went to a magnet school for the arts. So like, middle of the hood, and it's like you're either playing sports or like in the arts program. I was one of the weird art kids, right? But the only thing weirder than the art kids were the homeschool kids. That was the perception, right? It's like, oh, that kid comes here to play that sport or do that one program, but like he's homeschooled. So like, what does that mean? And honestly, it wasn't something I thought a lot about. And I don't mean this as like there's some nefarious plot behind the scenes, but I was indoctrinated into the belief that public schools were the appropriate thing. And if you went to a private school or a Christian school or were homeschooled, that's weird. And of course, the common misunderstanding that everybody has is, how do you socialize your kids, right? Now, getting into full-time ministry, getting exposed to families that did things differently, that started to break down some of those barriers. She had a desire to homeschool early on in our marriage, but I worked for Jesus. She worked at a hospital. One of us could stay home, but the other one couldn't, right? So we both worked. That was always going to be our future. That's what we thought the future was going to be, and that was okay. You just accept that. But things started changing in the last few years, especially as we're learning so much more. Our desire for it grew, and then the last 2 years, I've been doing consulting with content creators, YouTube creators, and businesses, and like half of the first clients. And I had asked the Lord, please just give me Christian clients because I really want to help increase the influence of people who are going to celebrate you. We're going to make your name more famous. And what he gave me was these homeschool mom YouTubers. And for lack of a better term, they really had us drinking the Kool-Aid. Like, we bought into who they were. We got to know their families. We'd meet their kids, and I would meet these like 18-year-old boys who are more mature than most 30-year-old men I knew. More polite, more respectful, more well-adjusted, socially extraordinarily adept. And it can put to shame one's preconceptions to see the reality of something you've harbored not a prejudice for it, but yeah, just maybe just a wrong picture of. And that's a long way of saying it, maybe, Amy. But yeah, my perceptions got turned around a lot several years ago.
It's interesting. As a second generation homeschooler, of course, I grew up outside the box. So for me, it's actually a little bit harder for me to imagine wanting to follow someone else's rules and someone else's system, right? And so I have to remind myself that I might also have different assumptions about other approaches to home education or education in general. But I think one of the things I love about homeschooling is what you were noticing with these homeschool moms on YouTube, that it was something way beyond just academics.
Yeah.
It's way more than just like picking a different curriculum than the public school or the school down the street. It's this whole idea about bringing one's faith and thoughts and assumptions about life and having it all integrated with family and academics. So, Brigitte, how about you? How have you kind of changed over the past, or have you changed some of your thoughts about homeschooling in the past few years?
Well, I didn't really have any negative thoughts about it. It was just something that was not an option when I was a child, or that I thought was an option when we started having kids, until obviously recently when a whole bunch of stuff happened and he started working from home. And I just, I wanted to, my heart was to. And then the more that obviously I started talking to the women that he was coaching and stuff in the beginning, it was like, gosh, they have so much time with their kids. They have so much freedom with their kids. Like they have so much more of a influence over them. And I was like, I honestly was like really jealous, and I didn't see a way for it to happen for us because we live in a very expensive area and we both had to work. And then when he wasn't working full time, it was like, well, how would that even, we don't have the finances to do it. And so um I, I think only recently have we begun to see that there could be a way for us to do it. And we've been obviously praying about it and trying to think of other options outside the box of how we could do it, even if we were working full time, and then hopefully bring me home to be able to do it and stay with them full time so that he could work, whether it be at home or going out sometimes to an office or whatever. But I think when we started our own business, well, we actually did have a business when I started YouTube when our daughter was 6 months old, and I went back to work. And after 3 months, I was like, "Hey, is this it? Like, I have the job, we have 2 kids. Like, what else is there to life? And so that started the whole business side. But yeah, I always wanted to. Because I just thought it would be nice to be able to be with my kids more. And I have, half an hour in the morning and 2 hours at night, and then weekends if I'm not working, which, I do work a lot of weekends. So I I wanted to, I just didn't see a way that we could.
Yeah, financially.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think there's this lie that we buy into in the culture that like that's weird, right? That's not what you should want, because the American dream is the white picket fence in the little suburban home, and you get the kids and the marriage, and that's it. And I think so many of us miss out on the idea of a shared mission. And I think that my experience with marriages in general, in ministry especially, is like, if you've got a shared vision for your life, a shared thing that you guys are passionate about, that you work on together, past your kids, so that when they leave, when they're out of the home, you still have something to you're passionate about together. That's what lasting marriages are built on. And so we found that in ministry together through our business, kind of. I'm rabbit trailing though, Amy. I apologize.
The rabbit trails are the point. Finish your thought. Yes.
Yeah, I just think that after we had our second one, Brielle, you started the YouTube channel. We had, we were as different as can be. It was the first time we had ever had, and we had the most important things in common. Our faith, like down to some pretty specific theological stuff, but like our faith, the type of household we wanted to have. We wanted to live in a suburban, at most, like more like rural situation. We're not city people, even though we live in one. We want to get out. Like we have the big life things in common. How many kids? Where do you want to live? What kind of lifestyle? What's health mean to you? Um, Outside of like our faith, but we didn't have any recreational things in common. Not a one. There was no fun thing other than cooking we did together. And like the having a shared vision of a business. Like for us, our long-term ministry business vision is to serve the family. Like we care deeply about marriage. As we grow our family, we care deeply about godly parenting, and we're trying to figure out what that is along the way, right? We're all learning that. And for us, this just was this thing we never expected. That just God was like, yeah, hey, here's a part of that.
Yeah.
And it kind of has blown our minds how quickly that happened.
Well, it's really interesting because when I was growing up, if someone found out you homeschooled, there was maybe a little side eye, some questions about the socialization or what have you. But I think the most common thing I hear now when I tell someone I homeschool, oh, I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish I could do that. And I think that so many people are going to really resonate with what you guys have shared, that there was this sort of like desire to, prioritize family, have this missional mindset, come together as a marriage partner team towards common goals. And this thought of like, I mean, that sounds great and everything, but I just don't see how we could actually make it happen. I think so many people actually are in that situation, and hearing your story and seeing the years to come, the hard parts and the good parts is going to be a way to encourage those people who are going to really hear that and say, yeah, that's me too. Because I have heard there's like a rumor that things may be shifting. You may be bringing some kids home in the foreseeable future. And before we get into maybe some reasons you're excited about that, I think it might be helpful for people to know it can be a little scary too. So I actually want to start with what most intimidates you or kind of scares you even a little about the thought of starting homeschooling.
A lot of it.
It's the homeschooling part that's really about it.
It's very overwhelming to begin with because right now I look at snippets of, let's say what our son is learning and he's in 3rd grade. So, it's like, well, how do they teach that? How do they know that? Like, I don't remember that stuff, like I don't remember how to teach structures of a sentence. Like, what are the structures of a sentence? Like I feel like inept at a lot of those things. And so choosing, I guess, curriculum, because there's so much out there. And then, I'm a very organized person. So like the setting the schedule and this and that, and like having this like picture of, okay, this is going to be the time for this and this and this, and then we're going to do some home ec stuff because I want to be able to cook still, but I want to teach you how to cook. So like the whole like organization of it, but it's like once I get into this box of like, okay, we're doing math now. Oh, okay, well, how do I do that? Like, how do I teach you math? I don't know. And so I think that part, just like the feeling like I don't know it all in certain subjects, like is intimidating. So I think once I would get into something, or got advice on like what ones are good to walk you through it, like then it would not be as scary. And I do know there's a whole, this is what I've heard, an unschooling, deschooling, sorry, part that happens, because you're not doing school at home, like you're homeschooling, so it's very different. So I think it's just like the actual subject part of teaching that is most scary for me. But I do love teaching. It is a gifting of mine, and I just feel like, but how do I teach it if I don't know it? So that's the part that scares me the most. But structuring our day, like I feel like that would be the fun part.
All right. Well, you're asking about fears, right, Amy?
Yeah.
I don't have those fears. I'm not worried about the ability. Again, we're different, right? I'm not worried about the ability to teach the knowledge. I don't think it really is bad. It might sound bad. I'm afraid of how I will handle spending that much time with my kids. Honestly,
Yeah.
I know that's real. I know that's maybe real for more dads than moms. I don't know. I know that it's funny in some ways she has more patience with them than I do. But then, like, if we need like the calm, authoritative, settle everything, everybody chill out thing, that I can do that or shut down a problem. But it's the keeping them engaged with the independent pieces I'm not worried about. The instructional pieces, keeping them engaged, and me having the right demeanor for little ones. That's where I struggle. So in ministry, I've always worked with adults. I was so young when I started full-time ministry. I was in my late 20s. People would go, "Oh, you're like a youth pastor." I'm like, "No." Kids pastor? No. That's not me. That's not like the Lord didn't send me to that ministry, right? It was give me addiction and marriage stuff and like family issues, funerals, weddings. Yes, I got you. Kids, I've never has just man, you're making me think of some stuff here, Amy. Kids have never been my primary ministry. Now, let me say also, our oldest is 8, our youngest is almost 5. As time has gone on, I have enjoyed spending time with my kids more and more. I think some of that is when I was working in full-time vocational ministry at the church. If I was home, I was always torn. I was always torn in two directions. And so it was like, oh, I've got some work to do. And the kids want my attention, and I'm gone all the time, right? And so I need to pay attention. So I always felt this guilt. I think as time has gone on, I look forward to time with them, but doing a few hours of instruction several days a week, that's the scary part to me. The actual teaching part, not scary. It's them being little, I think. I don't have an answer for that, but that's my fear.
I think one of the things that I love to tell people actually is that parenting is the hardest part of homeschooling because nothing in my whole life has done more to show my own sin and my own weakness and inability as parenting. I came in convinced that I was going to have it all figured out. I had grown up homeschooled before. So not only was I going to like do all the great stuff my mom had done, I was also going to avoid all of her mistakes and like be the perfect homeschool mom. Right. And the Lord is so gracious actually to show you these things that maybe aren't your strength, that maybe is scary to you. And that's where you're going to see God's grace at work. That's where you're going to look and say, hey, you know what? Actually, I couldn't do this on my own. Mommy and daddy need Jesus, right? As we tell our kids, you need Jesus. And it's important for them to look at us and say, yeah, mom and dad need Jesus too. So
Yeah.
I'm actually really excited. Thank you for sharing those vulnerabilities with us because I think in a year, I'm going to have to come back and chat with you again. I want to see how God has met you in those places and shown you his power and his ability in ways that you can't even fathom now. And that is exciting to me.
I
But
agree.
let's talk about other exciting things. That's what I'm excited about for you guys. Brandon, what's something that you are excited about this sort of potential transition to homeschooling?
The thing that I'm not afraid about is the thing I'm excited about. I cannot wait to teach my kids the way that we believe is going to be best for them. So we apparently hate having any savings. So we have our kids in a private Christian school right now. For us, we just didn't feel like the local public schools were an option. And so that was the choice we made. But even that, I just find, and they're great, honestly, for a Christian school, they really are great. It's just there's so many things that I'm like, wow, my son would thrive so much more if X, Y, Z. Oh, I would have taught them this instead. Or this issue that's coming up with these kids, I don't know that would be an issue with the homeschool families we know locally and that we would spend time with. Like that probably wouldn't have come up. And there's been some specific things that, as a dad of a little girl, I'm like, hey, that's really unfortunate. I wish we were homeschooling right now. And so, I'm that. When you said earlier about, I think you said, it's weird for you to follow somebody else's rules to educate your kids. I can't wait to be in those shoes.
Yeah.
because I
Oh, that's going to be a great, exciting part for sure. How about you, Brigitte? What's something you're really excited about?
I think I'm just excited to be able to see them more and to see how they learn and to see that progress, because I want to know how they got to that part. I want to know why they think that way. And right now they just come home and they say some things and it has to do with their day, but I wasn't there, so I have no idea what they're talking about. And, unless I get a note from the teacher or what, it's like I feel like I just miss so much. Um and then obviously, like, I'm a homebody, so introverted homebody, so very different from this one. So in the event in the future that I can be home full time, like, super excited about that because I love building our home and making it a place of refuge and sanctuary. And
and you're great
I'm
at it.
not perfect at
You're
it for
great at it.
sure. But that gives me life. And so being able to be home with them and being able to just show them things that I think are valuable to know, that either deal with the home or being able to be out in, like, outside with them at a park. Like right now, when we're home, like, it's okay, we get home from school, like, it's dinner, bath, book, bed, like, it's a rush of things to do. So being able to, like, sit and read with them or just sit and talk with them, like, that doesn't happen right now, like, for the most part, unless it's like a Saturday that I have off or a Sunday, and so I think just being able to see them learn is very exciting because right now I don't see that. They come home and it's all the routine stuff. It's like it's the basic needs, like, and I don't get to really even talk with them. And now that they're at an age where they are very talkative and they have all their own ideas and stuff, it's like I just feel like I miss so much of their childhood right now. And so I'm excited to be able to experience that with them because, they only have one childhood and I don't want to miss it. So that's what I'm super excited
I mean, that's a pull quote right there. Okay, so you guys are new to homeschooling, as a family. This is something you're new and thinking about, but you've kind of been connected with the homeschool community for a while. Brandon, you mentioned the Lord right when where you were making some transitions in your career. He brought you all these like random homeschool moms on YouTube to work
about.
with. And right as you guys were kind of trying to think, what's the next step for the family? I heard there was like a fire that got started in a car ride conversation, I think, Brigitte. So tell us, what did you say and kind of how did that start things? And then Brandon, you tell us how things progressed from there.
Yeah, so we were driving to our really good friend's house. They actually started homeschooling last year, and
Why were we driving there? Very
we
important.
were driving there. I was gonna tell
Oh, okay, okay.
because Brandon was gonna help the husband, who's his really good friend that he had worked with in ministry for 5 years or something like
Several
that.
years, yeah.
To put shingles on their chicken coop, right?
As one does.
Yeah.
Yes.
They obviously have more land than we do, and we want chickens one day. And he was like, "Yeah, bro, I'll help you." So we're driving there. It's like the end of December, like Christmas time ish,
Just after, yeah.
and maybe just after. And Brendan had been involved in like a nonprofit, and after a few months, we kind of realized, hey, maybe this is not where the Lord really wants you to invest your time. But it was about trying to get, trying to equip teachers and stuff in the school system. So that you could, sneak Jesus in to the schools, right? And we were like, oh, well, that sounds amazing. Like, yeah, it seemed like a really good opportunity. And then things kind of like fell apart or whatever. And so on the way to our friend's house, we were kind of talking about the situation. And I was like, what if we could not just like sneak Jesus into schools, but what if we could actually equip and encourage people that are teaching students, Christian families who are homeschooling, because he had obviously been working with homeschoolers for the past year or so. I was like, what if we could actually help them? Because they're already raising the next generation for God, and they're already discipling them. Like, what if we could just help them on that educational journey? Like, wouldn't that be better? Because like we already know they have our same faith values. Like we already know that they have a foundation and that what if they just need a little help sometimes? Like what if they need encouragement? Like it can't be easy. And so it kind of just sparked this whole thing like, well, what if we could create some kind of hub, some kind of community where homeschool parents could come to get encouragement, like be able to talk with other homeschoolers, be able to share things that they need help with or things that they've learned. I was like, because if we start homeschooling soon, like I wouldn't even know where to start. Like I would want to go somewhere where I could ask questions, learn things, see how different people do it. Because, over the last like year, after he had started working with homeschool moms, I was like, there's so many ways to do it, but how do I know which is the right way for me to do it, And I don't even know what all the options are. So it's like, here, you can do this. And it's like, well, what are my options? Like, I don't even know. Like, I only know one person now in real life, and I don't really want to do it like that. And we learn differently, and they structure their life, a little bit different. So I'm like, well, how am I going to find something that works for me and for my kids? Or what if it doesn't work for my kids? Like, I want to know what else is out there. Like, maybe they learn differently. And so it's like, well, I don't even know where to go. Like, there's not like a place online where I know you can get all of these like tips and tricks and stuff, like, unless I just search YouTube. But then there's just so many things out there. I was like, what if there was one place where you could go to get help and encouragement? And we kind of just started talking about it. And I mean, I guess what happened after that?
So many things happened after that.
Well, you first started talking to the people you knew.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah. Well, it made me think, what else is out there that serves that purpose? Because obviously that exists somewhere. Somebody's got that. But then we were looking for it. And we didn't find the thing that we were thinking about. And we found some other things out there that are fine, like great, whether it be curriculum company or a group of people who use one specific, like a group of Charlotte Mason people or bunches of Facebook groups. But that's not what we wanted. Facebook is a whole other thing, right?
Conferences,
but all of those were customer retention mechanisms. That's not bad. We just really wanted to be community first. But if your product is a book, or your product is a conference, or your product is how to do this style, or whatever it might be, like you can't be community first. You're product first. And we just have always really been keen on community in general. We think it's really important for believers. Like we're not made to be alone. We're made to do life together. And so we reached out to some former clients and we're like, hey, we have this idea to build this thing, and it would be like available to any type of homeschooler, no matter your style, no matter what you use for resources. And doesn't matter if you're whoever, Christian, agnostic, atheist, Buddhist lady down the street, great, you can be a part of it. But it would be led entirely by Christian homeschool content creators. And they're like, wow, that sounds amazing. And like way too big and it can't possibly be done. That was the first reaction we got from a couple folks. And then I said, well, let's just start talking about it. Let's have some conversations with people. And within a few weeks, somebody reached out to you, Amy. And so you were one of those early conversations. And can I ask you, how suspicious did it sound when somebody reached out to you the first time?
Well, I was super suspicious. So I knew that my friends, and I was like, oh, I trust her. But then I was like, who's this dude I've never heard of before? That was literally my first impression. And I was like, yeah, I tend to be a little cynical. Cynical is a negative. Maybe I'm just cautious. So I was just like, there's a random person on the internet. I've never heard of him before. Who is he and what is he doing? And how do I know this isn't a scam? Yeah. So that was my first impression. Over time, obviously, I'm now a part of the team at Made to Homeschool and definitely have come to see authenticity and truth and a real heart for the Lord. So to be clear, my first impression was erroneous, although I think a legitimate first question.
An entirely appropriate first question. And one of the things that I've learned about homeschool families over the last few years is, like us, how protective they are of their families and the influences thereupon, I guess. And one of the things that I really loved when you first popped into a meeting, and I could basically see you holding up a magnifying glass, trying to figure out what this was made of. It was a sign to me of someone who really cares about truth, and someone who really cares about excellence, and doesn't like even the aroma of something farcical near their family. And I value that greatly. And so I think you hung around one time after a conversation, and I was like, "Hey, Amy, ask me all the questions, like anything." And you did. And I thought it was a really excellent conversation. And it was so encouraging to me, and you actually were a big help in us trying to figure out what was what's the profile of a contributor. And one of the things that stuck with me coming out of our conversations was that I want the people that are not an easy yes.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And that was, you asked about the origins of things and how this thing and how it progressed from there. Not an easy yes became really important to me, um, because I think that a difficult yes is a stronger yes. And I really wanted the team to be made up of people who were committed to the mission. Um, and that became the team. You guys really became the core of everything to me. You guys chose the name. You guys, all you ladies, all like picked the color scheme. Y'all fought with me on the color scheme, and it's boho now. But like, I wanted purple. They said no purple. Uh, the the logo was a group of y'all on a call one day, like saying no, I don't like that. Change it. Do this. Like all of it. So the
Yeah.
progression of it past. Let me reach out and ask some people. For me, it's not just my story. It really, truly, every step of the way, for us, was a team effort to try to build something that would be valuable, whether or not you were on the team.
Yeah, I think that's been something that's been really interesting to me to see over the past few months, both before launch and now that we're in there as a community and just getting to know one another, getting to know new people and the people who've been around from the beginning. I think the thing that I love is that it's not just one personality, right? It's not just like the one person and this is their group. It is very much of a team, of a community. And you can find whether you're a Charlotte Mason or a classical or unschooler, or you have a lot of kids, or you have one kid. You work as a homeschool mom and outside the home, or you don't. And like there's something there for everyone. And I think that has a great deal of value because we learn so much, not just from people who are just like us. We actually learn a lot from people who do things like just a little differently because it gives you that other perspective. And then even just within the team, I've seen, that verse in Ecclesiastes where it's like two are better than one, right? If one falls down, his friend can help him up.
Yeah.
And even just those of us there on the team who are helping run the community, it's like if one of us has a crisis, everyone is there to help lift you up and carry you through that. I mean, that's been a surprising thing to me, especially as an internet community, right? Most of us haven't met each other in person. Some of you have, and I'm super jealous. But
One day,
that's been
Amy.
something I think has been beautiful.
Well, I think, one of the things that really, really early on, this may not resonate with a lot of y'all, but this is what's real, okay? Um, I saw all these creators out there as islands unto themselves. And I was like, there is so much gold there. Can't we just make it a team and do something amazing together that we could never on our own? And I imagine like a megazord of homeschool moms. Now that may not make sense to some of y'all who didn't grow up watching Power Rangers, but it was like you had all these robots and by themselves they were okay, but like together they could defeat anything. That I just went really nerdy with it, but that's what was in my head.
Well, and we've always valued unity, and you have fought for unity like in our marriage, and I've seen that over the last almost 11 years now.
Yeah.
And just unity within the church, and anytime there is division among the body, like he
It's silly.
hates it, and it's like, but this is not the way. Like Jesus said that you will know us by like how we love each other, and I like that needs unity, and so like seeing all of these islands, he had such a passion because that community is something that we have always valued from the beginning. We would always have families over for dinner, and like just trying to have relationships with people that can pour into us, that we pour into. And
both
so it's
ways.
like community and unity, like you need it. And so I think you saw that in this world that we were not a part of, and it's like, but couldn't this be different,
Yeah, it's like, you love Jesus? Yeah, okay. You love Jesus?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Y'all both think you're the best educator for your kids? Yep, same agreement, okay. But you can't play in the same sandbox because you're a Charlotte Mason person and you're an unschooler, and not everybody was like that. But sometimes it's like that.
Well, I feel like there's enough outside the family that's fighting against you.
Yeah.
So within the family, within like-minded families, surely we can come together and find enough to agree on to join and encourage one another to have a place to belong, no matter what your family structure looks like or how you're homeschooling, but to have a place where you feel like you belong. You can ask your questions if you have no idea what to do about something, or you can share your experience of something that's worked. And I love that it can go both ways in Made to Homeschool. It's really cool. Is there anything else you especially love about Made to Homeschool as it's kind of growing and developing?
I think just seeing the community talk to each other,
Yeah.
Like I often look through all of the comments and stuff, and it's like, I know who our contributors are. And so it's like, but then I see community members talking to each other and commenting and giving feedback and their opinions about, how to do this, or, oh, this really worked for me in this way. And I just think that's so cool to see them interacting. And obviously, I love the way people on the team support each other. And we all are so different, but coming together for such a common goal. And I love seeing that part, I'm among all of the resources, which are just blow me away
Really
all the
some
time.
excellent
Banana is
All the
awesome.
time. And I'm like, this is gold, like so
Yes.
valuable. Like, there's no way I could find all of this stuff on my own or have time to do it on my own. And I just think it's so, so cool seeing everything that there is in the community, the resources, but also the encouragement, and just, I think that's the coolest part.
I think for me, that is wonderful. I do love the resources. The live events, we're going to start having more of those probably soon. That's a whole other conversation. But I think there's just tremendous gold in there. I've seen so many people who join and they're like, oh, this is a live thing. You can see me. I'm on a camera. Like, that's weird, right? Oh, but I have a question. Can I ask a question? And it's this poor lady who has no community and knows nobody else who homeschools, and she's in there and she gets 20 answers to her question, and people are DMing her and encouraging her. And it's that, but more than that, I think what I found in really strong existing homeschool communities, folks who had a co-op for 12 years or whatever, they're like, no, I got my community. I'm like, that's awesome. I love that for you. Nothing replaces in person. Hopefully we'll have that one day too. That's in the plans. But there are so many people that, whether you're in a rural area or a large city, cannot find a community of like-minded families who like to share their worldview. And one of my favorite stories, just by way of an anecdote, there was a lady in California who joined as a member. I think it was an annual membership in the premium plan, and she didn't recognize the charge when it came through, and so she told her bank it was a fraudulent charge. I was like, oh, hey, no, don't do that. So I called her and left a message. I was like, hey, I think there's been a mistake. Just let me know how I can help. And she called me back. And she's like, I'm so sorry. I just missed what it was. And I told the bank and it's all covered. I'm like, okay, great. Thank you. And she's like, hey, wait, can I talk to you? I was like, oh, sure. Yeah. What's up? And she went on to tell me she was a grandmother raising her grandchildren, and she was going to homeschool them. And she felt equipped to do it now. But furthermore, she wanted to tell me about her story of raising her children and how in the 80s and 90s, she really wanted to homeschool, but she didn't think she could. And everybody told her she couldn't, and she wasn't good enough, and she wasn't able, she wasn't equipped for that, and oh, who would want to do that? And where would you get the resources? And just send them to school, it's easier, and work and do your job. And she was like, I wish this was here when I had my kids, because I would have known I could do it. There have been so many things like that that have been like the Lord affirming to us we're doing the right thing at the right time with the right people for the right reason in the right way. I'm excited for everything about it, honestly, and I'm really excited to keep growing it, enhancing the experience for people. I I love that it's helping people. That's what I got.
That's so exciting. Oh man, we could keep talking about this for hours, but I guess people just have to listen to the rest of the podcast season for that. But here at the end, I just want to leave with a few kind of rapid fire questions to help people again get to know you guys a little bit better. So the first question I'm going to actually ask is the question I ask all my guests on my own podcast, Homeschool Conversations. And so that is just, what are you personally reading lately? So quick answer, Brandon, what are you reading lately?
And I can't just say the book of Luke in the Bible that
Lame.
oh, the Bible is not lame. No, but you'll laugh at me. I'm reading Toll the Hounds. It is the 7th book of the Malazan series from Stephen Erickson. It's fiction. That's what I'm reading.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like fantasy, high
It
fantasy.
is, yes,
Okay.
epic, deep character development, 200 point of view characters across like 12 books. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
How about you, Brigitte?
So I'm reading, I think it's called 10 Acres Enough.
10 acres is enough, yeah.
About homesteading and stuff, but I'm also listening to, because I lost my book, Ina May's Guide to Childbirth, which I found very helpful with my last birth. So I'm like, well, maybe I should refresh it. So I'm
It's really good.
listening to an audiobook about it.
Perfect. We call that reading with our ears in my house. We believe that reading with your ears is just as much reading as reading with your eyes.
Yeah.
Speaking of books, do you have a favorite either family read aloud or maybe a favorite family board game, Brigitte?
Well, we just went through, it took us a couple months because we would only read like 1 or 2 chapters of the Little Pilgrim's Progress with the kids every night.
So good.
So good. It was Katie's recommendation, and I'm so glad that we ended up buying the book. So such good conversations with the kids after.
And really beautiful illustrations. I think the kids really enjoyed that, and I got to do all of the voices, which they loved. Same answer for me, 100%. Favorite one we've done so far.
Yeah.
I'm currently reading through book 1 of the Prydain Chronicles by Lord Alexander, the book of 3, and that's fun. But like, there was nothing like the conversations that were sparked by reading through Little Pilgrim's Progress. It was really excellent.
Well, I will third that recommendation. It's a great book. All right. Coffee or tea, Brandon?
Coffee, cold brew. We make it ourselves.
Same. Cold brew.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a coffee girl as well. I can drink coffee, hot coffee, any time of year. It doesn't matter how steamy it is outside. But as soon as the weather starts getting a little nip in it, I do break out my tea as well. Not for that first morning cup, but for the afternoon.
We like a good hot tea at night very frequently.
Yeah, we've been trying to do that more. But the thing is, like, since it's so hot in South Florida, like, we want the cold brew just with a little splash of heavy cream, no sugar, nothing. Yeah.
We're basic.
Sounds good. Well, since you're in Florida, are you going to pick beach over mountains, or what would you say, Brigitte?
Mountains, actually. We hardly ever go to the beach. I think we go once every other year. It's really bad.
Yeah, top. Yeah, we pay a beach tax basically just to live here. That's why everything's so expensive, but we don't go. Our favorite vacation spot ever was Sevierville, like Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. We rented a cabin on the side of a mountain for anniversary one year. Or no, it was in May, so Maycation. And we just like watched the sun melt into the mountains on the other side of the valley every night. Like, yes, that.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometime you'll have to come to the North Carolina mountains, which I know I'm biased, but they're the best.
One day we will.
All right. Final question. If you can meet anyone, living, dead, or hey, even fictional, who would it be?
Oh my gosh, I should have thought about this question.
We can't say Jesus.
I mean, you will meet him. You're already
Amen.
assured to meet him one day. So let's go with our second choice.
This is supposed to be rapid fire, but I, of course, before I say my person, want to give a disclaimer too, because like, since I'm such an introvert, I don't just like meeting random people. So I like to meet people that I have things in common with or have a reason to talk to them. Like, if I see someone, I'm not gonna like go up to them and be like, "Oh my gosh, hey!" Like, what? Like, I don't like to fangirl. Like, I've never been one of those people. And mostly because I'm just so introverted. But it would be cool maybe if I met Joanna Gaines, because like she's done so much, and like, I don't know. I think that'd be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool.
We never watched TV together. When they were on the air, we used to watch Fixer Up together. Yeah.
We do that at my in-laws' house. They'll save some episodes, and my kids enjoy watching that up there. Well, here at the end, if you were gonna okay, you guys have just listened to this conversation. We want you to stick around for other podcast episodes, but if you could just leave people with one thing that you hope they take away from our conversation today, what do you hope people take away?
I hope they take away that we are not trying to pitch that we have it all figured out. What we're trying to pitch is that we're all figuring it out together, and we're always going to be figuring it out together in a way that feels safer than the rest of the internet, and is going to provide you with things that are at least somewhat family friendly and can be a place where we get to grow not just from what we're learning individually, but from all of our ideas, from all of our perspectives. We're not just going to ever have one perspective, and we're not always going to agree with one another, but we can sharpen one another. And that's what I'm looking for, and that's what I hope people will join for.
Kind of along the same lines, I think people should know that you aren't alone and you don't have to do life alone, that we are meant for community. We are literally created for it. And I think in all the times in my life where Satan has tried to say, you're the only one that struggles with this, or no one else deals with this, and tries to isolate me in situations, I think that he uses that in people's lives to draw them away from their God-given community that they need, that God created us for. And so being a part of Made to Homeschool, you don't have to do it alone, and it's better when you do it together. And so I think there's so much potential. I think God is just starting something with this, and I'm excited to see what happens, because I know we're not going to do it alone, and the joy is spread when it's with other people.
And if you wonder, I'm going to add a thing. I'm sorry, sorry, Amy. If you wonder, as Amy did, what's the fishy thing here? What's behind all this? The thing I wonder every time somebody tries to sell me something is what's behind it? Who's the money behind it? There's no money behind this. It's just us. If you want to know at the root of the thing who's steering the ship, it's the moms, to be very clear, but it's us. And you can reach us, you can email us, you can talk to us. We're humans. We'd love to talk to you. But there's no man behind the curtain. I think that's probably a really important thing I want people to actually know.
And I think this conversation today is going to be great so that people can start to get to know you guys as real humans. And this was really fun for me to get a chance to get to know you guys a little better and chat with you. So thanks for letting me kind of take over the podcast ship today. This was really fun.
Thank you so much, Amy.